COVID news has ravaged the Chargers again as Joey Bosa has been placed on the list and will miss Sunday's game against the Texans. And 6 other Chargers have also been placed on the COVID list. So we have to get into that today. But in better news, we have NFL Network's Taylor Bisciotti on the show to talk about it.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we have a giant guest on today's show. But first, we've been covering the Chargers for over 4 seasons, doing our own Facebook Live show, Chargers Domination Live, which started 5 seasons ago, and this is our 4th season as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. But we could not be more excited today to bring on Taylor Bisciotti onto the show from NFL Network, who does a ton for the Chargers. I mean, she's the main NFL Network Chargers reporter for the most part, coming out with a lot of the reports today about guys testing positive for the Chargers for COVID-19. To make sure you guys never miss big shows like this, make sure to go subscribe to the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and also follow the show wherever you get your podcast from. But definitely glad we have her on here to talk about today. But David, I mean, there are serious ramifications for this wave of COVID tests for the Chargers, and we've seen all around the league how many games have been really impacted and even moved and postponed to other days by COVID, and it's hit the Chargers as hard as it's hit the Chargers so far this season. On Monday, 7 players on the list, Keeman Hall and Joey Bosa, have both been ruled out by Brandon Staley. That's first, so we know they're going to miss, which means positive tests for unvaccinated players. That's really all it could mean. The other players, though, on the list, Andre Roberts, Tavon Campbell, Trey Marshall, Chris Rumpf, Corey Linsley, obviously, is another huge name on the list. So hopefully, David, with these new, more lenient COVID policies and the way that they're testing and bringing back asymptomatic players, they can get some of these guys back. But nobody that's tested positive for the Chargers, unvaccinated or vaccinated, has played in the next game. So this is huge.
Yeah, it is. And like you said, hopefully those new protocols are going to allow these guys to play. The Omicron, COVID-19 virus is that variant is really out there right now. It is a weaker strain, according to, the CDC. But, these guys, as long as they're asymptomatic and, they don't have a fever and they don't have symptoms that, they're going to be able to spread around to people, then they very well could play in this game. And you feel a lot better about their chances of playing in the game on Sunday because of these new protocols. And I mean, if some of these guys are going to miss the game, I mean, Corey Linsley has been one of the best centers, one of the best offensive linemen, let alone centers in the NFL this year. I mean, I think he's given up 1 sack all season. Like the guy has been absolutely unreal. Obviously, we know what Joey Bosa brings to the table. But with all of that being said, Daniel, if there was a game on the record, on the season to miss, is probably the one you're feeling most comfortable with them not being there, is this one they're playing on Sunday against the Texans.
Absolutely. I mean, it's kind of like with the Giants game, when you knew you were going to miss Derwin and like some other guys were questionable for that one. And you're like, okay, well, at least it's a manageable game. You still should go out there and blow them out. But I had someone ask on Twitter just, do the Chargers have someone that can make the kind of checks and protections that Corey Linsley can up front playing center? And they just don't, right? I mean, that's huge. And he's obviously done everything he can. He's gotten vaccinated.
I think you feel good about Scott Quessenberry, right? From what we've seen from him whenever he's had to fill in throughout the years, he's been adequate. I think you feel good at least of him going in there and being able to hold his own. But does he have that same level of cerebralness that Corey Linsley does? Probably not.
Well, nobody does either. I mean, there's a reason that Corey Linsley, when everyone's in the huddle, is the only guy that's still standing, staring at the defense, to just try to pick up on every single thing he can and start processing that right away. And I mean, there's no way to quantify how big Corey Linsley has been for Justin Herbert's growth in 2021, but it's fair to say that it's probably been a huge reason as to why they've been so much better at getting those protections lined up front. Whether or not, they have the guys to follow through with those protections depends on a week-to-week basis right now. Right. In better news, David, the Chargers do get Rashawn Slater back at practice as we're recording this on Monday. That is something that needed to happen because even though Trey Pipkins played well, and I think none of us are going to, want to say anything bad about him, Rashawn Slater's played at an borderline all-pro level for the Chargers this season. So having him back, especially with the uncertainty
and
about
the fans have recognized that because he is one of the top vote getters at left tackle in the AFC for the Pro Bowl, along with quarterback Justin Herbert. So you very well could see the Chargers quarterback and the Chargers left tackle, if they're not playing in the Super Bowl, of course, at the Pro Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, for a team that doesn't have any fans, it was pretty wild to see that Justin Herbert is beating Patrick Mahomes as far as Pro Bowl voting so far this year. And Rashawn Slater, obviously, and very deservedly is number one at left tackle in the AFC, which is cool because All-Pro is the better representation of how good you are, obviously. But Pro Bowls still mean things to players, I think, especially your first one, which it would be for both Justin Herbert and Rashawn Slater. So that would be super cool. But I think the hard thing about this whole COVID situation, David, is just we don't know what it's going to look like tomorrow, right? Or the next day after that. So, like, as much as it seems like right now this is terrible having those 7 guys because it's like, I mean, Tavon Campbell, you still don't have Asante Samuel Jr. back. Brandon Staley said it's very soon, right? But you still have no certainty that he's going to be back this week. There's nothing for sure about it. Now you're missing Tavon Campbell. You're missing Trey Marshall, not knowing the statuses of Alohi Gilman in Derwin James, right? And this is just the guys that we know about right now. So, like, hopefully some of those guys can come back and they will have the opportunity to. You're missing, 2 edge rushers here with Joey Bosa and Chris Rumpf, right? When you're already missing Kyler Fackrell, who's been put on injured reserve, like, that is crazy, David. And I think it's just we still have to even wait and see kind of what trickles out throughout the rest of the week while kind of just hoping and holding on to that kind of glimmer of hope that with these new policies, some of these guys can come back.
Yeah, that definitely, right? I mean, it's gonna, no matter who you're playing on Sunday, those guys are still professionals. They are still NFL players, and anything can happen at any given moment in any game. So you have to go out there and put your best foot forward. One thing we do know, Daniel, is that the depth of this team is going to be tested. We do not know what that team is going to look like on Sunday because there very well could be more results that will come out in the coming days. So the Chargers are just going to have to adapt or die. It's as simple as that because they have a situation, they have an opportunity to go out there and control their own destiny and win these football games, and everyone else is dealing with this. So they don't care. The NFL doesn't care. Those other teams don't care. Their opponents don't care. So they just have to go out there and deal with it and go out there and go to battle with the men that you have available on Sunday.
And let's be clear about this. I mean, with the guys that are on the list right now, the Chargers should still go out and beat the Houston Texans, right? Yep. But at the same time, though, we don't know what the list could look like. So, yeah, I mean, the Chargers should still be able to win, but let's not mitigate, how hard it is to win when you're playing without some of your best players. Absolutely. I mean, that's going to, like, the NFL is close anyways, but if you're missing your top key guys, like the ones we're seeing on this list right now for the Chargers, like, yeah, you still have Justin Herbert. As long as you have Justin Herbert, you're going to have a good chance to win, right? But having these names cannot go kind of, unwarranted as far as how big of an impact it could have in this upcoming game. It could make it a lot closer.
Let's keep Justin in the bubble suit, right? Let's keep him away from everyone else. We don't need him contracting anything or
Justin Herbert should
close.
Look like Bubble Boy right
now.
Bubble
Boy.
Sure.
If you haven't seen Bubble Boy, go watch it. That's exactly what needs to happen for Justin. Keep away from Justin Herbert.
Everyone stay away from Justin Herbert. Everyone in the sound of my voice, stay away from Justin Herbert. But you've seen the Chargers kind of already respond to, some of the positions where they could be lacking, like cornerback. They signed former Denver Bronco corner Isang Bassi, who is a, player that Brandon Staley has worked with in the past. So it's someone that he is familiar with, or Ronaldo Hill has worked with, I should say, in the past. So definitely bring in more guys who can get up to the system, on the fly.
Yeah, that knows the language, that knows the systems already, that can go in there and perform immediately, basically.
Right. I mean, and he does have some talent too. But I mean, one of the big things, especially at this point in the season, is just finding someone with Brandon Staley and that terminology and verbiage that they use. Coming from Vic Fangio to Brandon Staley is a much easier transition than if you were taking just some random guy off the street. So we'll see how that plays itself out. But obviously, if you're getting to those guys that you're having to bring in right now, it's put in a pretty sketchy situation. But I do think when you're taking a corner away from a team that has some really good corners like the Broncos do too, you're hoping, okay, maybe this is somebody they were hoping they could slip back on the practice squad, and the Chargers jumped on someone who has some talent there. But alas, we have better things to get into because we have NFL Network's Taylor Bisciotti coming on the show. Great job by David getting her to come on the show with us of all people, she actually listens to the show. It's crazy to think about, but she has some great stuff to talk about. Thursday Night Football, Brandon Staley, the fourth down conversions going for it, and all those things, especially Justin Herbert and what he's been able to do, and what the rivalry between him and Patrick Mahomes is going to look like for the foreseeable future. But we have to get into that, and we're going to do that coming up right after this. But first, I need to tell you guys about Boost Mobile, because you listen to podcasts for the power of knowledge. You switch to Boost Mobile for the power of saving money. The power of 3 unlimited data lines for $30 a month per line, so your family can harness all of that brain power too. Because with Boost, you get the power of a free 5G phone, so you can listen to all of the latest episodes of the Locked On Chargers podcast, and the power of one of America's largest 5G networks, so you can do it all at the speed of 5G. With all that money that you'll save and all that knowledge that you'll gain, just how powerful will you become? Switch to Boost Mobile and find out and get a free Samsung Galaxy A32 5G when you switch to one of America's largest 5G networks. More power to save. Boost Mobile. Free phone limited to new customers and 1 per line. Additional restrictions apply. Offers and coverages not available everywhere for all phones and networks. See boostmobile.com for details. I also need to tell you guys that it's a pretty cool opportunity the Chargers have. We're going to talk about the playoffs with Taylor Bisciotti, and the Chargers, like we talked about yesterday, have a great shot of making the playoffs with what they're doing right now. And once they get there, they're going to be a dangerous team. I mean, not a lot of teams, I think, want to play the Chargers. So it might be right now the best time to start getting your Super Bowl plans on the way, because the Chargers have an opportunity to potentially play a Super Bowl in Los Angeles, which is something that had never been done before last year with Tom Brady. And if you guys are planning to go on the Super Bowl, there's only one place that you should go, and it's On Location. Super Bowl 56 at SoFi is less than 100 days away, and On Location is the official hospitality partner of the NFL and the only place to score a once-in-a-lifetime Super Bowl ticket and experience package. You can select your exact seats and choose from elite experiences, from an exclusive pregame celebration with NFL legends. You can have dinner provided by Wolfgang Puck, and you can also get all of the greatest things that LA has to offer with On Location. For more information, make sure you guys visit onlocationexp.com/SB56 or search Super Bowl On Location. That's onlocationexp/SB56 or search Super Bowl On Location. All right, guys, well, we're very excited to bring on our very, very special guest right now. We have Taylor Bisciotti, who we've been promising you guys, the big guest of the week, an on-air reporter and host for NFL Network. We're super excited to have her on because she's very linked in with the Chargers, does a lot of the Chargers coverage so far here in LA with the NFL networks now here in LA. Very well represented. So Taylor, thank you so much for coming on the show. We're very excited to have you.
Thank you for having me. Right when you guys reached out, I was honestly so excited because I live in LA and I drive to Costa Mesa, which is like a 45-minute to an hour drive, I would say, depending on the traffic. And I listen to your podcast all the time. So right when you reached out, I was like flattered, humbled. So thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Oh, no, you're definitely the big guest here. We're so excited to have you. Have you even heard of us? So thank you so much for listening. And we definitely listen to NFL Network and you all the time as well. But unfortunately, the first place we have to start here is something that you were reporting on earlier today. The Chargers placing 7 players on the COVID list on Monday. Joey Bosa has already been ruled out for the game Sunday against the Texans. How tough, just in general, do you think it's going to be for NFL teams down the stretch having these giant names pop up? Obviously, there's the new COVID policy that maybe will help vaccinated players get back a little sooner, but just having these teams have to kind of adjust on the fly, not knowing who's going to be out there on Sundays.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we kind of just went back in time to 2020 with all these COVID cases popping up, especially with just the amount of numbers of how many players have tested positive. The only silver lining that I can say here is that I feel like the league is doing a really good job adapting to the way that the virus is kind of adapted, because, you know, a lot of these players that are vaccinated are asymptomatic and they aren't showing any symptoms of the virus. So it's kind of like, well, why do we have to sit out and why do we have to follow such harsh protocols when obviously the virus has adapted? So I will say that there is a little bit of a silver lining there, but it is an issue because there are players that are going to show symptoms, and it's just going to be, I feel like every team is just going to have to navigate it the best that they can. But losing a player, an unvaccinated player like Joey Bosa, who leads the league right now in sacks, I mean, that's just huge for your team. And we saw in the Browns-Raiders game right now, nobody wants to win the AFC, but Baker Mayfield, he is asymptomatic. And I know his wife was, Instagramming and tweeting about this very passionately this morning, just because, he wants to play, he wants to be out there. Whether or not, it's a personal decision whether or not players get vaccinated, and they just kind of feel like they're at a disadvantage if they are the unvaccinated and can't get out there. So look, I hope that this isn't the storyline that we have going into the Super Bowl. I hope that, they're able to clean it up and kind of come to a better system, which I feel like we kind of have started to take those steps with the new protocols.
Yeah, thankfully, because the NFL's the best version of this product is having the best players on the field competing on Sundays. I mean, that's what people tune in to see. But hey, you were on the field on Thursday Night Football, and it seemed like it was a great atmosphere at SoFi Stadium. The Chargers didn't get the win, unfortunately, but was there any positives that you can kind of take away from that really hard-fought game?
100% tons of positives. First of all, who filled in for Rashawn Slater was Trey Pipkins, and he did an outstanding job. And I think that everybody was really, really concerned about how he was going to fill in there. That left tackle position has obviously been such an integral part to how successful this offense has been, especially how successful Herbert has been. He's opened up the run game. He's protected Herbert. He's allowed him to be a deep passer. So I think that there was a lot of positive that came into knowing that Trey Pipkins was fully capable of doing that job.
Absolutely.
And I just have to shout out to the amount of Chargers fans that I saw there at SoFi Stadium. Obviously, I cover the Chargers more than any other team, so I'm a little bit partial and biased to them. But just the amount of fans and the amount that LA, football fans have rallied around and really gotten on board with this Chargers team. I love it. I love to see it. I swear I was leaving the stadium and I saw just as many Chargers fans as I saw Chiefs fans. And I mean, who wouldn't want to be in LA this time of year? Right. So that just says a lot, because you know that away teams are going to want to travel to LA and come see their team. If they're going to, circle a date on the calendar, this is going to be one of them to come see the new stadium. But the Chargers did a great job holding their ground and really just showing up for the team. And I also think that another positive, just rolling down the list, is the running back situation. Yeah. Obviously, Austin Eckler took 30 or 35% of the snaps, which is his fewest amount of snaps in a game this season because of that sprained ankle. But Joshua Jackson did a great job stepping up for him. So maybe that RB2 is kind of coming into, or Justin Jackson is kind of coming into fruition, which we've been calling out for all year.
Yeah, even Austin Eckler's been wanting an RB2. But yeah, I mean, especially in a season where he's by far, exceeded the amount of touches he's ever had in a year, right? So as you get down towards the playoffs, obviously needing this dude, once you get there, having that guy to take some of the burden off of him is just going to play a huge, paid to huge dividends down the stretch. But what a game between, a couple of great quarterbacks.
And it was just so close. It just makes you think that, okay, the Chargers are so very much in this AFC hunt and as one of the top teams, because we all think of the Chiefs as potentially the best team in the AFC right now. Well, the Chargers were right up there with them. And had Derwin James been healthy, that was the biggest X factor of this game to me. 100%. I think that you look at it and you see that when Derwin was on the field, Travis Kelce had one reception for 14 yards. When he wasn't on the field, that's when he gave up. That's when they had 2 touchdowns and over 177 yards. Yeah. So, Travis Kelce wasn't able to get open and wasn't able to do those Travis Kelce things when Derwin was on the field. So had Derwin been healthy, had Austin not had that sprained ankle, had Rashawn Slater been in the game, and I know this is a lot of, what ifs, but I do think that the outcome would have been different. And I think that the Chargers are right up there and we're seeing so much improvement every single game. And I think that's what Brandon Staley kept highlighting today, was just saying, look, we're not down and out about this team right now. We are very much alive. There's a lot of football left for us. And because of how much we've improved in kind of really every facet of our game, we're pretty optimistic and positive about the direction that the team is actually going.
Well, and I mean, just looking at that game in particular, now we've had 3 games between Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert. There's obviously one game last year where it was the backups in for KC. Don't really count that for the, Justin Herbert matchup, but we've now seen, one game was a Justin Herbert game-winning touchdown, right, late in the 4th quarter. The other 2 games have been decided in overtime with a 58-yard field goal on the walk-off on Thursday. What do you think that just says about what this division's going to look like for the foreseeable future with those 2 dudes already just performing and having those games every time they match up?
It is 100% going to be the most, one of the most competitive divisions. I think that historically, we've seen the NFC North, they've had their really competitive time, the AFC North. Now the AFC West, which wasn't always known as one of the toughest divisions that there are with these top teams. But with Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert, they're 2 of the best young quarterbacks in the league right now. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. And honestly, the Broncos the Broncos and the Raiders were right up there with them too at the beginning of the season. So it's a tough division. It's gonna take a lot to really stand out and separate yourself. So it's a lot of fun football for us to watch.
Yeah, we're so blessed that we get to see Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes going head to head for hopefully the next decade, right?
We won't have any boring games, that's for sure.
Yeah, and a lot of primetime games as well. One of the most discussed talking points of that Chiefs game was Brandon Staley's decisions to go for it on 4th down. What did you make of those decisions for him to keep on going for it?
This is a topic that I feel like we could talk about for hours on end, especially after we saw, kind of the world, like the Twitter world, which is always just so mean sometimes, just go nuts on Brandon Staley. And then literally we saw what happened with the Ravens and John Harbaugh on Sunday. And then don't worry, everybody directed their hate towards him. But look, I think that Brandon Staley's philosophy has pretty much stayed the same. And that is that we are going to play aggressive. We are not going to play scared. We are not going to play in fear. I think that he has really bought into the statistics and the analytics and the math of these games. And I don't think that this team would be in the situation that they are right now if it weren't for his aggressive play calling and those bold decisions that he's made. I don't think that they would have won week 3 in Kansas City. I don't think that they would have won honestly, the next game was against the Raiders and they set that up. Yeah. Cleveland and
the Raiders too,
and Vegas. So I do think that, we can sit there when it doesn't work out and be upset about it, but we've got to look at it from both sides. And had it been successful and had it worked, we would have been saying he's the smartest coach in the league right now.
Yeah.
So I think that it's easy to have second guesses and think about it and wonder, okay, was that the right decision? But I do believe in his philosophy and in his coaching because, again, this team wouldn't be where it is today if it wasn't for those, that approach.
Yeah, and just continuing to go for it, even, when the numbers have backed him up in every situation. I mean, it's hard to go against them. And, hindsight is 20/20, but you have to think
that first one was to Donald Parham, and I'm so glad to hear that he is out of the hospital and doing okay. But, that one
scary
usually would have been converted,
Yeah, exactly.
That was a
touchdown. I mean, Keenan Allen's 4th down one where it gets batted down, that's a touchdown too. Plus, it's hey, you get one of those in the first half. Now you're sitting at 21 points instead of kicking 2 field goals, and you're at 20 points. So the numbers always check down. Brandon Staley, I think Chargers fans for so long wanted the aggressive coach when they didn't have it, right? And it's hey, you got it. I
couldn't be a bigger fan. I swear. I just think that he's got such a great approach, just not only in coaching, but the way that he relates to the players. That speaks volume. And going from one extreme to the other, but you look at a coach like Brandon Staley, who is a players coach, and then you see somebody in Jacksonville, an Urban Meyer, and what do you want? I want the Brandon Staley. He's just the epitome of just a class act football coach who fights for his players, who, is just a good person. I'm excited to see him, be the coach of this team for a long time to come. I don't see that changing.
He's great at press conferences too. I mean,
he is. Oh my God. I feel I literally feel like I'm sitting in a TED talk. I'm don't worry, I get to go to my free therapy session today. I'm just going to work listening to Brandon Staley talk about life. Who knows what he's going to pull out of his pocket today.
Yeah, when it's so rare that you see someone actually win the fan base before they've even coached a practice, right? And that's what seemed like happened with Brandon Staley. And I mean, one of the players who I think has benefited the most from that this year is Justin Herbert, who even after having maybe the best rookie season of all time, still had a lot of people, well, is this going to be the sophomore slump? And there was certain narratives that were definitely floating around. And I think he's come out and kind of squashed all of those. But what have been your impressions? What has impressed you most from Justin Herbert in year 2, who just seemingly every week is breaking a new record?
He's breaking new records. And he's just, even when he's under pressure, his poise under pressure is unbelievable. And then something that Staley always talks about is a lot of quarterbacks can sling the ball down the field. A lot of them can, make crazy throws and have crazy arm strength, but most of them cannot throw under pressure with the accuracy that Herbert has. That's what stands out to me, is that he is literally throwing video game throws while getting hit under pressure. That one to Jalen Guyton, while getting hit under pressure, and the accuracy, he's just putting it right in their hands. And he always credits the receivers. He's if I just get them the ball, but it's no. Nobody, no other quarterback could be put in this situation and still play to the level that he is. And
it's almost he doesn't know how good he is. Maybe he's just that humble, but it's he doesn't get it.
It's really frustrating as a media member though, because we're always requesting to get the quarterback after the game to do our one-on-one interview with. And he's always oh no. He tells the PR people, I don't want to do any interviews. Just let one of the guys do it. And it's okay, every once in a while you got to talk though.
Right.
Some of the attention has to go on you when you throw for, countless 300-yard games.
Right.
He's hilarious. I mean, if you look up a PR interview in the handbook, that's going to be Justin Herbert's answers every single time.
Oh, I know.
He gives very, very little, but that's
got
who
the
he is.
quarterback speak very quickly. You learn.
I'm hoping he gets more like Phillip Rivers the more he is.
I do too, and I think that'll come in time.
Yeah.
I think that you've heard some of the players. Like I was talking, I can't remember if it was Bosa or Derwin or one of the guys after the game one time, and I did my post-game interview with him, and he was saying that he's become more of a leader in the locker room and more outspoken, which
I think it was Bosa who said, like, I'm
like.
not even that big of a vocal leader, and he's already doing that in year 2.
Yeah.
I remember that.
That's awesome. So the Chargers have some big rookies, some great rookies playing some big roles. Obviously, one of those, and I'd say the most important and the one that's shined the most, Rashawn Slater, the left tackle, and of course the second-round pick, Asante Samuel Jr., who has been arguably the Chargers' best corner this year, with other guys likely having their roles increased lately. What are your thoughts on the Chargers' 2021 rookie class so far?
I think it's been outstanding. I think that they literally hit gold with Rashawn Slater. I remember reading an interview with him before he had been drafted, just about how like dedicated he was to his craft. And I had covered Oregon Pro Day, so a part of me was kind of thinking that they were going to go for Penei Sewell, and Penei Sewell's had an outstanding rookie year as well. Yeah. But just like listening or reading about how Rashawn dedicates his life to football, and basically the second he was drafted, he was like, I am your bodyguard. You never have to worry about a thing. Like, I've got you. And I remember I read this story that he was on vacation for spring break, and still he was like in the corner. They were on like a boat, like one of those cruise ships. He's like in the corner of the cruise ships, just still going through plays, just dialed in. It's like, oh my God, do you ever take a vacation? But yeah, no, I mean, I work with Brian Baldinger, and I think that Baldy talks about him nonstop all the time. Fan number one, and understandably so.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we had Baldy on right before the season, and just like, hey, make everyone feel good about this first-round pick, Rashawn Slater. And he couldn't have had better things to say, and that's with the dude not playing in 2 seasons, because of everything with COVID and all that. But he's been great. I mean, it's been a long time since the Chargers have had a left tackle as good as Rashawn Slater. And he's a rookie, and he's number 1 in Pro Bowl voting. And it just to get your biggest need like that in the first round, have it fall to you was just crazy. But the Chargers now are in crunch time. I mean, it's the final 3 games of the season. We were crunching playoff numbers last night. And I mean, the Chargers win out, they're in. If they lose one, they still have a pretty good shot. But what do you think it says about this first-year coaching staff if they are able to go overachieve in that sense? Because I do think even with a talented roster, with the guys they've been missing, with the things they've had to kind of go through, I do think they are overachieving just a first-year coaching staff, what would normally the expectations would be. So how impressive do you think that would be if they can make it in year 1?
I mean, I think they should make it in. They've been incredibly impressive, and I just feel like they're getting better each and every game in the small little things that they really couldn't fully kind of get it together in the beginning of the season, like the run defense, that's kind of coming together. The special teams, they have a kicker. The Chargers have a kicker, everyone. Breaking news.
They don't like to use them sometimes.
They don't like to use them, and that's all that matters. But there's little things, and I feel like it would be such a shame for this team not to make it to the playoffs, because I do think that the second that they are in the playoffs, anything is possible. We have seen what they've been able to do on the road. They don't need a home playoff game in order for them to be successful once they're there. I wouldn't want to play the Chargers team if they make it to the playoffs and if they're in there, because I think that they get Derwin back to full health, Austin back to full health. Asante Samuel, like you said, he's hopefully going to be released from concussion protocol this week. Hopefully, again, I think that we've all been optimistic about it for the last couple of weeks, but I think that, again, that will be a huge difference maker. And I couldn't be more impressed with just Staley's philosophy and the way that he's managed to connect with all the players and really make them all buy into this process.
It seems so much different than what I've seen, at least from new Chargers coaches in the past. It just really does seem genuine, more transparent than I've seen before.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Oh, it's been fantastic having him in comparison to Mike McCoy and Anthony Lynn. I mean, it's just completely
the players know. I mean,
different.
He said it too. Like, the players know if you're BSing them. Like, players are smart. They know when a guy comes in and knows what he's talking about. And it seems like he's gotten that buy-in from the players. Something
that stood out to me that he said is like, like when you're going through film and you're studying something, like I want a player to know why we're doing something a certain way. Yeah. I don't want to just sit there and say, memorize this play. It's kind of like understanding something in school when you're in 3rd grade and the science teacher is teaching you about something. Like, you're understanding like why you do things a certain way, the process of it, because that eventually is going to pay off in the long run, because moving forward, you actually understand the game of football. Like, I don't want to sit there and treat them like they're just, not saying Bill Belichick does this, but just, go here, go there, where they're memorizing plays. But I want them to understand the approach behind it, the reasoning behind it. And then if at that point they disagree, then we can talk through something. And I want to hear what they see when they're on the field. It's, I'm not out there with them. And so if they see something different, like, I want to know about it. And so then we can go back to the drawing board and see, okay, is there a better way for us to do this? He just seems very like in tune with what the players want, what they need. And then ultimately it's going to set them up to be as successful as possible.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Brandon Staley, he's really been phenomenal. He's been a breath of fresh air without question. One guy who is an integral member of this team on the defensive side. We know how good he is. We just know that he has to be healthy. And a guy who's been mostly healthy this year. And of course, I'm talking about the all-world safety, Derwin James. Yeah. After missing a couple of games here due to 2 years due to injuries, are you surprised that he's been able to come back so quickly and get back to that all-pro form?
Not at all. Just like how much he loves football, how dialed in he is as a player, how much he is just so passionate about the game and wants to be out there. I went over the Charger sideline before the game and they said that, I was like, is Derwin going to play? I heard that he was going to be on like a limited snap count similar to Austin. And they're like, Taylor, that's a silly question. We would literally have to physically hold Derwin down in order for him not to be out there. He loves the game so much. He's going to work hard for it too. He's not one of those players that's just naturally gifted and will go out there and, have a good game, have a bad game, but he's sitting there and he cares about every single person on that team, giving it their all and playing to their best ability. He's such a leader in that locker room. And I mean, I can't say enough positive things about him. It's just the numbers speak for themselves as to like what he does when he's on the field, what their numbers are versus what they are when he's off the field. I mean, I think the Kansas City game was a perfect example of that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, sometimes you see how good he is when he's not out there because Brandon Staley's asking him to do so much. Like, it's hard to see all the things he's doing on the back end to cover things up when teams aren't targeting him down there. But Brandon Staley knows that's where he needs to be to stop the explosive plays, like we saw at the end of that Kansas City game, right? And being there.
Yeah, Patrick Mahomes wasn't going to throw it towards Kelsey when he knew that Derwin was lurking back there. I wouldn't either.
No, you're definitely not going 50 yards after the catch in the middle of the field with Derwin James. I mean, ask Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who kind of learned the hard way. Maybe just step out of bounds next time if Derwin James is coming at you on the tracks. But Taylor, thank you so much. I mean, I'm so excited.
Thank you for having me.
For sure. I mean, you'll definitely, hopefully, come on with us again as this season
progresses. I would love to. Hopefully, we'll be talking again in the playoffs, right?
Yes. All right. Well, Taylor Bisciotti, the #1 guest once the Chargers get into the playoffs, which they absolutely should do, and taking care of business this week against the Houston Texans. But yeah, thank you so much again. We really appreciate your time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.